Hello and welcome to another episode of Saving Mumbai, the series where we look at Mumbai, putting Mumbai front and center of the political and policy discourse. Today, I have with me a very important guest. Her name is Anusha Subramanian, and she has been working as a journalist for the last more than 25 years. But more important, apart from her journalism work, she has also been working in a very, very important field, and that is giving access to many, many public places to people with disability. She's been a mountaineer, so she helps people climb mountains. She's been a cyclist, so she helps people cycle in the city. She's been a runner, so she helps people run in the city. An absolute all-rounder, and she's been a friend for the last 25 years. So it's been a pleasure to know you, Anusha. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sachin. It's been such a pleasure when you asked me to, come for this podcast. I listened to a few episodes. I loved the cycling episode. And I'm just so happy that, I'm having this conversation with you because the kind of work that I do uh, requires conversation.
Yes.
And, we need to continuously converse. It has to be continuously instilled, talking about.
You're right. I mean, for you, we never put, even able-bodied people at the front and center of our discussion when it comes to mobility, when it comes to transportation, access to buildings. So I was wondering when I was looking at, you were talking about public buildings, where access has become so difficult.
Yeah.
If a visually impaired person wants to climb a building, if a physically disabled person wants to climb a building, how does that one do that? I know that in certain malls now people are modernized, have access to such things, but literally thousands and thousands of places in Mumbai don't. So I want to use this conversation, Anusha, to bring that focus back
Right.
into making the city more and more inclusive for everyone.
Right.
What are your experiences so far in terms of accessibility to public places, access to buildings? How have you been working on this in Mumbai?
So, Mumbai, there is a lot of work that has happened. I won't say it's not happened, but you can still say that it is not 100% for a city like Mumbai. When you compare it to London and New York, I don't think the city has ever been planned keeping in mind the section of the society which is persons with disability, kids with disability. But having said that, little work is being done, but it's not 100% in the sense that my experience of, I started working about 5-6 years ago using the outdoors more as a tool to take persons with disability to the outdoors. What I found is that the outdoors is more a free space. You can just let them be, and it is also one of the only places which doesn't judge you. When you, in this, massive city called the dream city of Mumbai, how often have you actually seen a person, visually impaired? पहले तो दिखाई भी देते थे, अभी तो you don't even find them on signals or, at most places, very rarely you will find somebody on a wheelchair. That's because people, one is the family is not very confident of sending them out. Two, accessibility, of course, is still a question mark. But a lot of visually impaired people I know are very independent. But like you mentioned, are the malls accessible? Are the public spaces accessible? Like my friends who are very independent, visually impaired, they can cook for themselves, they stay alone, they've stayed alone, they work in corporate. But when they go into a mall, they still need an escort, which a lot of my blind friends say, do I really need it? I can't
And why
take care
should
of
they?
my...
Because
Exactly.
they are people like us. I mean, why should this question should not even come to a policy maker, right?
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly how my friends talk, They're like, I don't need. Like, for instance, this friend of mine who's a tandem cyclist, he's very adventurous, young guy, 28-year-old. We've done a lot of cycling. We've done trekking together. He's blind, totally blind now. They insist when he goes into an airport, they insist they'll get him a wheelchair. Why, he asks, I mean, he says, I'm blind. I can walk. Why do you insist? No, but they insist that he needs a wheelchair. So, these are little things. So, one of the things he feels is that, all of us, when we have a discussion, is this orientation, about they are capable, they can do their own things, they don't need sympathy. But then I don't blame normal people like us. When I first also started, the apprehension was not as much, because I used to write for a blind person when I was in college also, write paper. So you kind of knew somebody, but we've not technically grown up, studied in a school where we've had kids with disability. We've not gone to college with a person who's been on wheelchair, or in the offices also. Now, corporates say so much percent have to be disabled. You don't have them around. There's always this apprehension. How are people going to react? And it's a catch-22. So when I do outdoors, when I want to make it, initially I started doing outdoors only with them. And I realized this is not working.
Right.
It has to be inclusive. And why I used to do it only for them is because for me, finding able-bodied people became difficult.
Yes.
To be a guide. They don't need a guide, they're just a buddy.
But here I want to, you positioned your conversation in a really interesting place, because you and I have been talking about this for a long time now, and you have climbed Kilimanjaro with blind people. You've climbed the Everest with disabled people, base camp with disabled people. It's a phenomenal achievement in itself, but there must be a story behind it. There are people who are saying, who must be telling you that no, these people can't do it because they're not able to do it. But you've shown that these people can do it.
That's always
so
the
I
case.
want you to maybe give an example or two of people who have overcome their challenges, not despite all the issues that we have in terms of accessibility, in terms of understanding, in terms of, even when we speak in the language that people like us or people like them, which is so exclusive. I want that language to be inclusive. So how do we change ourselves to understand people with disability? One. Two, how do you do this, and what inspires them to come with you and to climb mountains and to cycle 40-50 kilometers a day?
Right.
I want you to tell us a couple of stories.
Yes. So you said, how do we make this conversation, get everybody to do? That is by normalizing disability. And how do you normalize disability? It's at various levels, One is we need to start having friends, going out with them to a restaurant, to a coffee place. When I go for a coffee with my blind friend, of course, he's independent. He uses a cane. I'll give you an example. I was recently in a pub with him. And so as soon as I entered, I know the place very well. So I told him, this is what the ambience is. And we've got a table here. So it's a high stool. And I had to tell him the gap between the bar and the stool so that he's comfortable. And he sits comfortably. And then had to give him a little orientation about where the washroom is for the men. So I had to give him a little bit. He got it. So when he went to the washroom, I got a call, I went out, and obviously we are a phenomenon in this pub, okay? Now this pub, everybody knows me because I'm a regular. But people are so amused. I don't know whether it's amused or are they amazed.
Or they're bemused,
Yeah, exactly. So the staring business doesn't go. Ki ye banda andha hai, how is he doing things on his own time? So he came, he
So for
called.
you, it is normal.
It is normal.
Because he's a friend of yours. But for the neighbor,
Yeah.
he is or she is amazed and they're wondering, my goodness,
Yeah.
will he
No,
fall? Will he
so
do this? And
so
whereas
the,
that thing doesn't cross
exactly.
his
So the
mind.
manager actually, because he was checking his phone for something. So when he went to the washroom, the manager actually came to me and he said, ये फ़ोन यूज इस्तेमाल करते हैं. I said, आप और मैं जैसे इस्तेमाल करते हैं वैसे ही करता है. I said, उसको he hears his messages. I said, Uber भी लेता है ये. And then when I went out for a call and he was in the washroom, this guy comes out, one of the guys, you must have seen us, said, it must be very difficult for you. So I said, difficult what? It doesn't strike me, you know. And sometimes when I'm with my friends who are visually impaired, I completely forget that they are blind. So sometimes Sanket will have to tell me, like I go for a run with him or a walk with him. I'm like talking, I'm like walked ahead, and then suddenly I look around, Sanket is not there, and see, you forgot again. I mean, it's sometimes a joke, and they're very jovial people. They don't take it as a disability. Like how we normal people do, I don't like the word normal, but nevertheless. So I said, no. I said, he doesn't have a problem. We don't have a problem. I said, the problem is the place.
Yeah.
It's the accessibility in this place, which is not designed for him at all. But I said, that doesn't mean he can't come here. I said, he wants to have, a good meal. He wants to listen to good music. So we have to kind of maneuver ourselves and do things. So, and then it becomes like most of these people think that you're doing something, absolutely amazing. It is not actually.
Not,
And
because you are friends.
Yes.
So you don't think of him as a quote unquote special case.
Exactly.
We just behave like, you and I have been friends for 20 years.
Exactly.
You and Sanket are friends for many, many years.
Exactly. So. And the other thing is like, I mean, so that is something which I'm working towards, is to normalize, just get. And I thought outdoors is the best place to normalize disability, because when you have an able-bodied person also walking along a visually impaired, or say an amputee, or a child who's on the spectrum, what outdoors does is it just equals everyone,
Right.
It is, I remember this, one of my
it's
friends.
It's literally a level playing field.
Absolutely, because I remember this very well. One of the participants in one of my treks, who was with a visually impaired on the trek, when we reached the top on the summit, he said, Anusha, one thing, the amount of difficulty I faced was as similar to what he faced. And here is why I realized that the challenges are the same. It's like when you are by yourself with a group of able-bodied people, you don't realize it.
Yeah.
You just feel that, oh, he's more fit and I am not as fit as him, so I'm a little slow. But what it has done, and this is a learning for me also, is that when I do these inclusive treks, it has just created this level playing field. Everybody just looks at each other as very normal, capable. तुम्हारे को जो difficulty है, वही difficulty मेरे को है. So let's just kind of, motivate each other and walk together.
But it's this conversation, Anusha, that is absent from our regular discourse. Right? So it's when families meet, where friends meet, we don't talk about this.
Yes.
Even though some of us had either physically disabled people or visually impaired people as college friends. But somehow they drift apart because their families are not confident to let them go out on their own.
Correct.
They're always in the need of an escort, to go to even to a barber shop, for instance.
Right.
So these are things that we take for granted.
Right.
I want to understand from you that if we as a society have to change our mindset, our perspective, our thoughts, where do we start? Do we start with language? Do we start with reading? Do we start with watching videos? How do we do this?
I just thought about this as well. We need to start with building awareness. And I think social media, we don't see much. It is just the few of us activists or, working in this field, putting out some posters. It gets lost somewhere, I feel. I've been doing this for the last 6 years, and I still feel that there's so much to be done. I mean, I myself, sometimes I feel that, see, we don't have, I've been trying for a column in a newspaper to write on a regular basis about this so that people read and can gauge that all these open spaces need to be accessible for everyone. Restaurants, may we need to find. Now people see a deaf and a mute person uh, behind a CCD counter, and they think, oh wow, CCD is doing great. Yes, they're doing a great job, but he might be having other capabilities.
Right.
But this seems to be like an easy thing. People just look at these people with awe, which is not required. Just look at them as somebody who's capable. He's also learning a living, rather than make this into something which is out of the ordinary. It is not. But for it to become, like I'm saying, normalizing disability is a big, huge task that we all have. And I think we can only do it by writing, all of us write, having a column, doing some videos. Media per se needs to have, now I feel that we've evolved so much. I think Hindu, you were the editor at Hindu. Hindu was the only paper, I think, that covered disability. I remember, because when I was, you also asked me about the question as to people, constantly telling me that, how do you do this? Isn't it difficult? It is. I have to put an extra layer of safety. I need to plan. Probably if there is one contingency plan for plan B for able-bodied people, there will be plan C as well for persons with disability. But having said that, it is the same level of safety you need to look at. You need to plan it the same way as you plan for an able-bodied person. But when I was doing Kilimanjaro and I went to get sponsors, I was point blank told, why do you want to do something like this? It's quite risky and dangerous. Brands told me this. So, but I said, I'm confident. And these are people who are not venturing into the outdoors for the first time. They've all done a lot of things like tandem cycling, Manali to Khardungla, 550 kilometers we've cycled without any problems. Been doing trekking and all of that, and I'm confident we'll all reach on the top of Uru Peak. But I was advised to do more for women, do women empowerment, girl education. I said, yeah, I do that as well, but this is something that I want to. You won't believe it. I never got sponsors till the last minute, where I then decided that I will go on my own. I will do social media posts and all. I had one blind person from Israel who had already told me he was going with me. So I said, we'll still do it. And then the filmmaker said, no problem, Anusha, I'll also put in, my own pocket money and we'll get the film also done. Idea is to portray inclusion and the fact that everybody can climb this mountain. And then there was a bright spark. The article came in Hindu, and then there was this gentleman who, out of the blue, like an angel, just came and said, I'll sponsor it. And he said, I want to just celebrate the spirit of, human spirit with you. He said, I can't climb, but I'm very confident. He didn't know me from Adams. He just kind of read the article. He just read my, the apathy that I was going through, not getting sponsors, and the fact that all these brands are giving me advice why I must not be doing this. But thankfully that was a successful climb.
But it is this question that comes to my mind quite often, because the point that you mentioned, that corporates have money but they look at these things as a CSR project.
Exactly.
It is not inclusion in the true sense. It is because the government has mandated 2% of your money, of your overall money, should go to CSR.
Yeah.
And this is where the challenge lies for individuals like you, who want to get more and more people included in the
Yes.
mainstream of society.
Yes.
But there are challenges because either there's no money or there is no acceptance. I think both have equal
Yes.
challenges in terms of
Money, I won't say, is not there. Acceptance, I don't know whether it's acceptance, it's more apprehension.
okay.
I would not say acceptance, it's more apprehension. You know, this fear of, and I think the apprehension actually comes from the fact that we don't know how to interact.
Yeah.
You know, like even in any like my friends also tell me, they're in the corporate, it takes a lot of time for people, their colleagues, to know that. And these are friends of mine who are visually impaired or having some other kind of a disability, who are doing very well in their job profile. They've all very well read. They've gone to normal schools. But still, they're still not considered there, you know. I mean, like, kuch to hai, you know, kamiyan hai.
Yeah.
But that is something which you need to...
And that is the additional hurdle that people with disability have to cross.
Yes.
Because able-bodied people do not have the problem or the challenge of telling people that we are capable.
Yes.
They know inherently that you're capable.
Yeah.
Whereas a person with disability will be capable,
Yeah.
is capable, but they have to prove themselves each time. I mean, that is so. I'm trying to understand from you that this overcoming this challenge is possibly one of the bigger hurdles that individuals like you will face when the question of inclusivity happens.
Yeah.
So my question arises from there. So I'm saying that will policy or regulation push this down the throat of corporates? And will that make a change? Or will there be resistance? Or do you think that, just because the government is telling us, we have to do it?
I think certain things needs to become mandatory for us to normalize this entire disability and, making it more accessible in various ways. To get people to think that they are normal. If a blind person, a single person in the city can go to a coffee shop, sit for hours together, a blind person should also feel confident and go and sit and have a coffee and do what he wants to do on her own also. Recently I remember there was I think couple of, I think 1 or 2 years back, there was this little survey done with women who are deaf and mute and, wheelchair, for accessibility, to check accessibility. There was a little survey done by Safe City. And they found the women have a lot of problems. See, you need to normalize disability at various levels. There's gender sensitivity also. Same is the case in outdoors also. My guides that I work with we are not trained for this. It is now kind of coming into play that we need to train our guides to take people with all kind of abilities into the outdoors, Mountaineering school में हमको कभी नहीं सिखाया कि अगर आपके साथ कोई, how do you guide a person? You just get a certificate in mountaineering, that's about it. Soft skills नहीं होता. You have to gather that. So you need to train people.
So even a simple thing like visiting the toilet becomes a problem.
Yes.
See, in terms of gender also, I know that, women have been crying hoarse about accessibility to, clean washrooms along the highway, even in the jungle, for instance, when they're going on safaris, for example. It is doubly or trebly more difficult for people with disability to undergo that same trauma, because you do not have, and the embarrassment, the people not paying attention to your condition, all of that also exacerbates the problem.
Yeah, and I think in a city like Mumbai, no, most people have no patience.
Mm.
Okay, so like even if a blind guy is standing in a line or a deaf and mute person is standing in a line to get somewhere, you will find other people, trying to
Push their way through.
push away through and get through. One A, the city is extremely crowded. Infrastructure wise, we are not very conducive, whether it's able bodied for persons with disability to or be mushkil hai. I think what is required, is that when the government needs to set up a consultancy kind of or a think tank with experts when they are looking at metros, they're looking at new office spaces, who will just consult on what is appropriately required. Now, I went to an office building recently, a new office building. Guess where the wheelchair access is in that building for persons with wheelchair? It's not from the main entrance, it's from the parking lot.
Wow.
So, which means that your Uber, or if you are in your own car, you have to go into the parking lot and then
enter
act
from, yeah.
from there. I don't understand.
So in a way, it is a psychological assault because you're
It
not
is not
part.
psychological.
No,
I
but
think they are just forgotten
exactly,
that
in a
they
sense, yeah,
actually
they exist. Yeah. So I'm saying
And
that,
it's not a small
which is why you don't
percentage.
see people with disability enter through the main office.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they're just completely forgotten
Yeah.
in anything that we do. Whether it is starting a new startup, whether the corporates are already there. Acha, theek hai na, the government has said ki, okay, 3% or 2% of persons with disability. Now you're like looking around.
Yeah.
HRs are not oriented, I think. I'm not sure.
And even with buildings, from what I've known, their attempt at inclusivity ends at making a ramp. But that is not all. It is ramps are for people with wheelchairs, but there are other forms of disability.
And I think we have this obsession with building steps.
Right.
Everywhere there is a step. Whether even an able-bodied person can fall and break his leg, I've not understood this. Your sidewalks, have you noticed this recently? On the sidewalks, which is empty, there's this sudden pole that comes in between to obstruct bikers from not going.
Yeah.
Imagine a visually impaired person. Sometimes with their cane, they can't figure out that pole. They go and bang themselves. I've seen it happen also. My friends have gone through it. How are you designing these things? It's not 1A, it's like an afterthought, which should not be the case. Suddenly when there is International Disability Day in December, you will find these ads coming up. Then it is a lull period for the next 11 months. There is no conversation. It is just a few of us who work in this space or, who are working with people with disability will do some bit of post here, which also I think, it's 24 hours on a post on a LinkedIn and it's forgotten. There's no regular, continuous conversation. And I think a few things that the government can do. See, I'm not saying that Mumbai, to a large extent, is much better than many other cities.
Right.
And that is what a lot of my friends with disabilities say. We are still safe. We are still a safe city in the sense that one can go out on their own. It is just that the families are not very confident still. For women, a lot more can be done. For the deaf and mute also, I think it's very chaotic for them, when they kind of get out. But a lot of them have figured out the way. So they are not really waiting for the government to do anything. They've figured out, at least the ones who are capable, the ones who have decided ki mere ko kuch karna hai, are out there doing their own things. They're independent, not waiting for the government to do something for them. But having said that, I think a lot of things that the government can do is, one is mandate, have a consulting think tank where you have experts who can consult and design office spaces, infrastructure. Infrastructure is one of the most
And this has to be
important thing.
part of the original thinking.
Exactly.
It cannot be an afterthought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has to come from right from the beginning. Abhi, if I'm working on a metro, now Ghatkopar was the first metro. Now, somebody in a wheelchair in Ghatkopar East, there is no lift. I don't think there's a lift. I have not seen one to go to the metro side. But the west side has, because that is where actually the metro starts, right?
And even in the local trains, suburban trains,
There's a beeper.
There's a beeper.
Yeah.
And there is a small compartment for the physically challenged, but there is no access to go there because you still have to climb steps.
You are dependent on your fellow passenger.
Yes.
So one of the thing is the beeper, and the second thing, if you notice, for them, the tiling is different.
Right.
So they know ki yahan pe the coach will come. But more often than not, that coach, they can never get into a crowded train.
Crowded train, yes.
Because it's never empty. It is taken over by every other person other than the person with disability. Secondly, in a bus, only 3 seats are reserved for the persons with disability. I find that strange. I mean, which world are we living? We've moved on, at least.
And this is why you think that government should make it mandatory.
The couple of things need to be made mandatory. It needs to, so that, people are used to seeing them around.
Yeah.
Because, see, families are not confident. Why are we not seeing them? We are not seeing them because they are scared to, get them out. One is a lot, especially with kids on the spectrum, ADHD kids. You will not find them in public spaces.
Yes.
Even if they are with their parents, the parents are either embarrassed. I have a lot of parents who ask me, if I will be open to taking their kids on a outdoor trek. And they're very surprised that I don't battle an eyelid and say, yes, I can. They're saying, but... so I said, leave all your apprehensions. Just send the child, or you can come along, it's fine. And a lot of parents have found that bonding with their kid in the outdoors has helped them also understand.
And their relationship with the child
has also bettered, because they're no more in the closet. At least they're able to take them to a park. Otherwise, all these kids are kept in the closet, or they wait for all the others to go, and then I will take my child out. But these kind of public spaces are important for social inclusion, whether it is adults, whether it is kids.
I mean, just to wrap up this, because we're running out of time, but so you're saying that there are multiple levels at which we can make our society inclusive. One is at a family level, because the family needs to be confident for their children, for their brothers, for the siblings, for the parents, to be safe on the streets. Second, policymakers and government have to mandate certain things for it to be normalized. So we see more and more people with disability amongst able-bodied people, so we know that it's normalized. The third part is society at large. How do we get society to talk about people with disability more, not just one type of physical disability, but different types. So you spoke about autism spectrum, you spoke about learning disability, people who can't read, people who are dyslexic. How do they find signs? How do they read signs? How do they go? So all of
audio visual needs to be there.
So your recommendation, if I may say so, to government is these multiple, to all of us rather, is this threefold: family, policymakers, society, media, society at large.
I think it's high time that, you remember when we were growing up, DD was the only one which had sign language
news readers.
It still has. None of the private channels ever did that. I wonder why. Abhi bhi nahi ho raha, I think. I don't think so. But,
in the US, for instance, where I've reported from, I live there, I know that many of the official press conferences, for instance, has a sign language interpreter, and they constantly are talking. So this makes it, and so it's become so normal now that if the sign language interpreter is not there, it feels different.
Exactly. Over here, it is like one ajuba.
Yeah.
Matlab, Why? Then they will start looking around.
Yes.
Who is your deaf
Yeah,
and mute?
yeah.
That there is a, somebody. It should not be that. I mean, we 24 years of the 21st century, and we still having
We're still
this
battling this,
conversation.
yes.
And we still not found a solution.
Even a small one.
Exactly.
But I'm hoping that, Anusha, I mean, you're doing a phenomenal job. I mean, literally climbing mountains. And I'm really proud to have you as a friend, as an acquaintance for more than 2 decades now. This conversation is important for Mumbai, for someone like me, because one, I'm trying to understand the language with which we can speak. I'm trying to understand how, without being discriminatory in terms of approach, in
Or
terms of language, or
sympathetic.
sympathetic, how can we include everybody in our mainstream? And perhaps getting the media involved in spreading this word, getting the discourse in the mainstream so that we can talk about it more in the most normal manner possible, so that policymakers can think, oh, next time we build a metro, I don't want to do it only for able-bodied people and disabled people as an afterthought.
Yes.
I want to build public institutions, public buildings with everybody included.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning. And I think everything starts with, I think we need a lot of empathy and patience. I think,
Anusha, thank you so much for joining us today. This was the episode of Saving Mumbai where we looked at people with disability to be part of the mainstream. I hope this helps. Thank you once again for joining us.